How many leading Democrats, Cenk, did Trump prosecute and lock up?
I'll never vote for Trump because he hates America. My government, I'm going to smash it to pieces if I can't have it.
What person has Donald Trump ever prosecuted as a Democrat? Shouldn't you be able to point to at least one?
Some Washington Post wrote something mean about me. Yeah, we knew he was a failed loser businessman.
Right.
But
he's
he's
the most
loud.
Trump must be the most successful failed loser.
Kamala ever done?
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we're going to be watching another unhinged meltdown from Cenk Uygur as he gets taken to school by Clay Travis and Dinesh D'Souza. Now, Piers Morgan Uncensored has quickly gone from a political talk show to a documentation of Cenk Uygur's journey into the depths of insanity.
Some Washington Post wrote something mean about me.
But you almost do feel bad for Cenk here because he's going up against two highly competent individuals, and his debate partner in this one is about as useful as a sack of potatoes with its boobs out. So he was outnumbered, but luckily for Cenk, he has the presence of three men. So with that, let's get into it.
I sort of feeling you're holding your nose with Kamala Harris. You don't want her to be the Democrat nominee, but she is. Therefore, you kind of, well, she'll have to win because I hate Trump so much. She's not a convincing candidate. I mean, she is a massive flip-flop, but she deserves the chameleon title. Every interview is full of word salad nonsense. You know, with Trump, you kind of know what he is now. He served 4 years. We know him good, bad, and ugly. Kamala Harris does not, she wouldn't inspire me to open a crisp packet. I have to be honest. Now, am I wrong?
Yeah, so guys, you're looking at it wrong, of course, I think. So, but let me explain because it's a little bit more complicated. I think that Kamala Harris is a typical politician, and that's not a compliment. I think she's an establishment Democrat, and I think 90% of politicians are establishment Democrats or Republicans. So if you're someone who's on the left or progressive and you think she's going to deliver unicorns and rainbows, no, she's going to deliver for her donors. So then if you're at home, you're saying, oh my God, that means I vote for Trump, right? No. The reason I'm voting for Kamala Harris is because Donald Trump is literally mentally impaired. He's a danger to this country, to our democracy, and that is not just a talking point. He's set to terminate all the rules, regulations, and articles of the Constitution when he didn't win in 2020.
Yeah, but he's not going to do that, and you know he's not going to do that. You know that's not what he meant. This is the problem, though. So, guys, when you go after Trump...
So this is the problem, Piers. This is the problem. Whenever we're talking about criticizing Kamala Harris, you guys let me and everybody else go for 20 minutes. And then whenever I say the first thing about Trump, everybody jumps in to cut it off. That's how this thing is so biased. So let me tell you, you want to talk about mental impairment? Come on, guys, it should have been over when he said, let's put disinfectant inside our bodies. He's a very, very dumb man.
He didn't say that.
He thinks that clean coal is you take out coal and you scrub it clean. He thinks the F-35 stealth fighter is invisible to the naked eye like Wonder Woman. He took a dementia test and thought it was an IQ test. The other day, he said that the audience in the debate went crazy for him. There was no audience in the debate. The man has significant mental problems. I'm not going to vote for a borderline lunatic. So that's why this conversation is nonsense. A typical politician versus a guy who tried to terminate the Constitution and is a verifiable lunatic. Not a hard question at all.
Let me bring in Dinesh. You spent some time with Trump recently for this new project of yours. What's your assessment of Trump now compared to, say, 8 years ago when he first came on the political scene, took everyone by surprise, not least the Democrats, pulled off the most shocking presidential win in American history? What's your impression of Trump now?
Well, there are certain aspects of Trump that are exactly the same. I mean, you have to look at this guy as a kind of stand-up comedian. When he was making the lines about Kamala, you could tell he was getting the reaction that he was going for. And he's genuinely insightful and funny. He has a good sense of the one-liner, and he delivers it almost to perfection. Now, the point is, people said a lot of the same things even about Reagan. You know, the guy's crazy, he's demented. So Trump is not outside the mainstream in his political rhetoric. When Cenk says that he's a would-be dictator, he will terminate the Constitution and so on, all of this would be somewhat scarier if Trump hadn't already been in office. I mean, the guy was there for 4 years.
Already tried to terminate the Constitution.
How many leading Democrats, Cenk, did Trump prosecute and lock up? Let's compare that to the number of Republicans that have been indicted. Did Trump indict the leader of the opposition party and try to put her in jail? People shouted, lock her up, lock her up. But did he actually try to lock Hillary up? No.
No, look, before I come back to Cenk to respond to that, I want to play a clip from Dinesh's film here, Vindicating Trump. This is relating to Trump being comparable to Caesar. Take a look.
You're not a normal Republican. You are massive entrepreneurial success and a builder. You built the New York skyline. You're also a cultural icon. They fear that even though they know you're not Caesar, you do have that kind of dimension. You have that kind of power. You didn't do an insurrection, but guess what? Had you called for one, there would have been one. And there would be one if you called for one now. They know that kind of power. They're scared of it. And so they're like, this is the one guy we need to go after by all means necessary.
Well, I don't know if I have that power. I'm not sure I want that power. I want the power just to make the country better.
I mean, Cenk, that would be my point, which is if Trump was going to do all the things you claim he's going to do, he'd have done them.
Yeah, but he did. It's you guys pervert reality in a way that is amazing. You pretend that he.
Can you stop saying you guys?
Oh, can I?
Dinesh has just said that.
You just did it, Piers. How do I not
what?
include you when you just did it?
I literally
so
said.
I answer the question?
You said that Trump wants to undo every part of the Constitution. I'm telling you that is completely insane for you to say that. Utterly nonsense.
You're insane.
He's never going to do it.
Lunatic.
He's not going to do it. You know it. I know it.
Okay, guys, let me just address the audience. Okay, these guys are trying to brainwash you into forgetting the things that Donald Trump actually did. He actually did January 6th. They actually did rush the Capitol. They did get inside the Capitol. People did die. He did say, let's terminate the Constitution when he didn't win. He did have a 3-hour meeting about installing martial law and rolling out the tanks. Everyone in his administration said they would resign immediately if he did that, which General Michael Flynn suggested. He actually, when his chief of staff said, your fans are looking to murder your vice president, he said he deserves it. So you guys are pretending he didn't do these monstrous things, which he already did.
Actually, Cenk,
Piers, if you ask me why I'll never vote for Trump, because he hates America, and he already proved it. When he lost, he said, my government, I'm going to smash it to pieces if I can't have it, because he's a spoiled little baby. You're pretending like it didn't happen when it already happened.
Had you read or heard anything I wrote or said about January the 6th, you'd know exactly how I feel about it. But you haven't.
Why did you just pretend that it didn't happen?
No, I didn't.
You're like, well, he didn't do it. He did do it.
So can we please all take a moment here to acknowledge that Cenk Uygur calling anybody else in the world a spoilt baby has to be one of the most tone-deaf statements that one could possibly utter.
He's a spoiled little baby.
Cenk, you're going to have to learn how to control yourself. I know it's very difficult for you, but you just had a very long time to speak and we were quiet. I promise you can do that. You need to sit on your hands, then you should do that.
Buddy literally reminds me of the Where's My Mountain Dew guy.
Where's my Mountain Dew?
What are you talking about, man?
No, where's my Mountain Dew? I keep it in the microwave.
No, you have.
Do you see my glass? I'm raiding in here, and I don't have any Mountain Dew.
In fact, I'll go as far as to say that Cenk makes that guy look like an enlightened Buddhist monk that has been spending many years in a Tibetan monastery. But this is just the times that we're living in, and we understand here at Rattlesnake TV just how infectious Trump derangement syndrome can be, and also how rapidly it can spread in areas of the country with high population density such as New York and Los Angeles. And at this time of year, the illness is particularly virulent, and there's a very nasty strain going around that's unfortunately eating away at the part of the liberal brain that is meant to regulate emotional control and faculties of reason.
When it already happened. Well, he didn't do it. He did do it.
But on to the next part now, where Clay and Dinesh make some very, very good counterpoints to the whole Trump is a dictator, wants to overthrow the government claim, and Cenk does not come close to refuting these points.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in because I think that when you are trying to look at someone's character, it doesn't just, or actually not even primarily, come down to, quote, rhetoric. You have to look at someone's character by their actions, both in the public sphere and personal. Now look at Trump. here he is, and Clay mentioned this roaring economy that would have almost inevitably led Trump to re-election. But then you have his advisors come to him and say to him, the men in the white coats, there's a pandemic. You need to at least temporarily shut down the economy. And Trump has got to have known, and he did know, that if I shut down the economy, I'm actually shutting down my own economy. I'm jeopardizing my own chances of re-election, and yet he did it. So is that consistent with the idea that you've got this selfish guy who only cares about his own political prospects, doesn't care about the country? I would say no.
That's actually a very good point.
You talked about the assassination
That's actually a very good point.
The assassination
I mean, Cenk,
attempts,
you can shake your head, but that's a very good point. Anyway, but back to Dinesh.
No.
Well, Trump, look at the way in which Trump has responded to both assassination attempts. I mean, this level of bravery, I think, is unmatched by anyone, certainly in the political arena, but maybe even alive today. Who is a guy who, when he's being dragged down by the Secret Service, pulls himself up, not knowing if there are more shooters, more shots, and shouts, fight, fight, fight? Who is a guy who, upon a second assassination attempt, where there is a man evidently a few holes down who has been trying to kill you, and you are a little annoyed that you've been interrupted in your golf game because you were just about to make an amazing putt? I mean, I don't know anyone alive who would react to these kinds of terrifying situations in this way. It's clearly a window into his character.
I completely agree. Whether you love him or hate him, you cannot dispute that Trump has shown huge personal courage when he's literally come under fire.
Just a quick reminder, guys, that if you do feel like smashing that like button below, it does help me out in a big way. And also, if you're enjoying the content and getting value, if you feel like being a part of this thriving community, then you're welcome to do so. Let's get back to the video.
Hey, look, the guys like Dinesh D'Souza do these outrageous lies like 2,000 Mules, but there's not much we could do about it because of the First Amendment. So he's not saying get rid of the First Amendment. He never said that. And by the way, if he did say that, I would be 100% opposed to him.
No, he said it was a problem.
Meanwhile, the right wing, they're saying arrest all the protesters who protest Israel. Donald Trump is saying, hey, Google and Facebook, I'm going to imprison you guys because I don't like what you're doing. Washington Post, he threatened to shut them down because they criticized them. He doesn't believe in the First Amendment. He doesn't believe in any of the Constitution. That's what he thought about, and he declared out loud that we should terminate the entire Constitution.
All right,
so if I thought John Kerry was 10% of Donald Trump and how much he hated the Constitution, then I would be opposed to John Kerry. But I don't think he said that at all.
Clay, I thought it was a pretty sinister thing for him to say, actually.
I agree with you, Piers, and I got a couple of things here. One, to me, and I respect Claudia's opinion, I respect Cenk's, even though he probably doesn't respect mine or Dinesh's, because I believe in the First Amendment. And I believe it is the single most important right that we have in the United States. And I believe that if you're only going to be a single issue voter, to me, supporting the candidate who endorses the marketplace of ideas to the largest degree is the candidate you should be voting for, and that is clearly Donald Trump here.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala has said that there needs to be more censorship. No. Kamala Harris has said that there needs to be more censorship. She demanded that Donald Trump not be allowed to have a Twitter account. Even Elizabeth Warren wasn't willing to go that far. She is radical when it comes to restricting speech. Let me also build on something Dinesh said, because I think it's important, because I think it goes to the heart of the argument that somehow Trump is going to be a dictator. In any of our lives, there has never been a point in time when the American public as a whole has more relinquished its freedoms than in the early days of COVID. In March and April and May of 2020, the amount of power that was undertaken by the federal government and was voluntarily relinquished by the American public to a large extent was scary. I want to hammer this because I think it's so important. There has never been a point in time in any of our lives, maybe other than right after 9/11, when a president could have adopted more dictatorial powers and taken a greater expansive role of control over the entire country. What did Donald Trump do then? He deferred to every governor and every mayor and let them determine, based on the results in their communities and their states, what the rules should be for COVID. In my opinion, Trump actually deferred far too much to lunatics like Gavin Newsom and Cuomo, who were locking down their states like crazy, but he allowed the Ron DeSantises and the Brian Kemps of the world in Florida and Georgia to make different decisions. That's the goal of federalism, is to have 50 state laboratories at a time. Compare it to what Joe Biden did when he came into office. He said, if you don't get the COVID shot, I'm going to fire you. He said that schools needed to remain closed because it wasn't safe. Biden actually took far more dictatorial powers during COVID than Trump did, and the left cheered him on. Again, if Trump wanted to be a dictator, there's never been a time in any of our lives for multi-months where a dictator could have taken over more, and he deferred. He let every governor and mayor make their own decision. That, to me, is the ultimate test on how much power Trump will have. He could have taken more than anybody ever has, and he relinquished it.
Okay. So they were both pretty damn good points there, especially the latter. I mean, there are many examples in the 20th century alone that you can point to, where various forms of instability has caused opportunistic leaders to seize dictatorial power, and COVID would have been the perfect opportunity for Trump to do that if he was this aspiring dictator. He could easily have shut down the whole country and basically torn up the Constitution if he really wanted to. I mean, during that period, I was living in Australia, so I know that anything is possible. Anyways, you can actually see examples like Germany after the Great Depression, coupled with the loss of World War I and the Treaty of Versailles, which led to the rise of the Nazi Party. Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe in the 80s consolidated his authoritarian rule during his time in power because of a time of economic crisis and hyperinflation. Hugo Chavez of Venezuela, elected in 98, did the same thing. In the 90s and 2000s, Mubarak of Egypt capitalized on unrest to extend his rule and used emergency laws to suppress dissent and used his powers to crack down on opposition movements and control the media. I mean, if there was going to be a time to seize authoritarian rule, Trump really missed his big chance. Furthermore, Dinesh made a really good point as well. Donald Trump did the one thing that makes sense in the constitutional republic that is the United States, and he gave the states the power. And now on to the last bit, where Chunky Yogurt goes full Delulu mode.
Okay, just to pivot quickly, because we're running out of time, but Clay, you start with this, which is the VP debate on Tuesday. Obviously, Waltz against Vance. Are you concerned that J.D. Vance, it might be a rough night for him?
For JD, no. I think Tim Walz, in all honesty, Piers, is the dumbest person who has ever been on American presidential ticket in my life. I think the challenge that JD Vance Trump, is going to have, JD, whatever you think about him, is Trump is a super bright guy. You can't succeed in business like he has without a lot of talent.
Well, he didn't.
Tim Walz a moron.
He's a miserable failure
an absolute
in business.
Moron.
6 major
He
bankruptcies.
is going to get embarrassed, I think. And the thing that J.D. Vance is going to be, pay attention to this, Piers, the thing that J.D. Vance is going to have to be careful of is that he doesn't pummel Tim Walz so much that people start feeling bad for him. Walz hasn't done a single solo interview with a national media figure since he was elevated. This is a guy whose wife bragged about leaving the windows open so they could smell the burning rubber of Minneapolis. This is a guy who lied about his military service, who is utterly unqualified to be a heartbeat away from the presidency. Of everybody on tickets, I don't think Kamala's qualified. I think Tim Walz, her worst decision. She should have taken Josh Shapiro. I think he's going to get embarrassed on Tuesday night.
Cenk, the dumbest we've ever seen, apparently, Tim Walz.
Yeah. So look, guys, you guys live in an amazing imaginary world. They're like, if Trump wanted to be dictator, he would probably, if he lost an election, have somebody or a lot of people rush the Capitol and then not stop them, even as they're trying to murder his vice president. And he would try to terminate the Constitution. He did do that. He did all of that. And you guys don't acknowledge it. First Amendment. Kamala Harris has never said anything against the First Amendment. Donald Trump threatens to imprison anyone who criticizes him. You guys live in a delusional, imaginary world. So in your world,
Tim Walz is... Hold on, what person has Donald Trump ever prosecuted as a Democrat? Shouldn't you be able to point to at least one?
No, by the way, you know who's prosecuting Democrats? Joe Biden. I got no love for Joe Biden, but he went after Senator Menendez. at least the federal
No.
authorities did. They went after Eric Adams. They went after Cuellar.
I'm saying if you're going to say Trump is going to try to put his political adversaries in prison, name one.
Hold on. Clay, let me answer the question. You know why the federal government, the FBI, Justice Department goes after someone? When they have evidence. Okay, so Trump says, I want Jeff Bezos arrested because some Washington Post wrote something mean about me. And then he goes, hold on, let me answer the question. Then he goes to the Department of Justice, and they go, yeah, but what evidence do you have against him? He was mean to me. And they're like, no, we're not going to prosecute him because he was mean to you. Grow up, you little child. So which leads us back to the debate. So we're talking about Tim Walz being unintelligent? Are you crazy? The guy
but you're
like
acknowledging, hold on, that he never has prosecuted any political adversary.
Hold on. Okay, well, he's the one who's came up with the lock her up chant. You guys again pretend it didn't happen when all of you were chanting, lock her up, she's our political opponent.
He didn't
you guys loved it. You loved it.
Hold on, Cenk. Let's get real. But here's the thing.
And besides which, Donald Trump is a criminal. Clay, what do you want us to do? You pretend to be in favor of freedom, and you pretend to be in favor of equality in the Constitution. Donald Trump is a lifelong criminal. He's broken every law that we can imagine. And you go, oh, let him go. He's our leader. He's our beloved leader. He should be above the law.
You are like a guy who got broken up with and can't get over it. This is so deranged. Like, Trump was never charged with a crime until he decided to run as a Republican after 75 years of being a public figure.
All right, let me bring in
Trump because I've always known he was a pea-brain little idiot. Donald Trump is the dumbest man we've ever seen in public life, and these guys are pretending he's smart. He's like, well, how could he be a successful? He's not a successful businessman. 6 major bankruptcies. The moron built 3 casinos in the same city.
He had a successful television show. He's built tons of buildings.
Hold on. He had a television show where he yapped like he always does.
They never made a living outside of the government.
Lines.
I can tell you he's got a very successful television show.
Failed the bar exam.
I can tell you his television show is very successful, and he showed extremely high levels of intelligence on that show, Cenk, because he made me the winner of Celebrity Apprentice. Let me bring in Dinesh.
That's not a business.
Let me bring in Dinesh.
He's a carnival barker.
Actually, it made tons. Hang on, the Apprentice, which he had a stake in, made tons of money, so that's not true. Dinesh.
He didn't run the business, did he, Piers? Piers, don't lie. He didn't run the business, did he?
He did have a stake in the business of the brand of Apprentice. Yeah,
now you're playing word games. You said he had a stake in the business because he had equity in it as part of his deal as an actor. They hired him to be an actor acting as a businessman when they knew, and they say now, yeah, we knew he was a failed loser businessman, but he was so loud.
Trump must be the most successful failed loser
Kamala ever done.
It's incredible that this pea-brained loser managed to become president against the most qualified candidate in American history, Hillary Clinton.
So normally we can engage with the arguments about Donald Trump in a good faith manner, and we can try to maybe see the angle and then refute the argument. But when you call him dumb and when you call him a failed businessman, that's when you go into the area of Delulu land. And with this level of delusion, I genuinely would not be surprised if next time I'm on the Whatever podcast, I see Cenk Uygur sitting across the table from me.
Ask everyone to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10.
A fat fucking 10.
A fat fucking 10?
I'm just saying what everybody in the comments is going to say. Be like, oh yeah, she's a...
But jokes aside, if you have an equity stake in a massively successful show like The Apprentice, it means that you bring irreplaceable value and not that you're an actor. I mean, go to Mar-a-Lago and try to tell me that the guy is not a successful businessman. He is, after all, a billionaire, and there aren't too many of them floating around. So, I mean, anybody who hears that, who has half a brain, just knows that this is Trump derangement syndrome on major steroids. So another very fascinating chronicle in the journey into the underworld for Cenk Uygur. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel right here. And also my links will be below. And if you'd like to watch another one, click right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.